Rebounds TV with Calvin and Barry. Just two crazy fans of the Sacramento Kings and they sharing their opinion. So be sure that you subscribe. It's for the fans, by the fans. Whether you chilling on the couch or wildin' in the stand. For laid back conversations about the Kings, subscribe here. Staying down until we come up thinking this gon' be our year. We're here, drinking beer, talking about the Kings. Be sure you subscribe so you can hear that bell ring, yeah.
wanna see me in the grave. Come out the law in the rave. Oh no, I can't wait. You can read what you sow in the day. I was down, now I'm up to the plate. Got a couple hits, cause you know I can't play. We gon' win it no matter what the shirt. Got the stick, we gon' bring it out the shirt. I was down below the commas. I put dollars on my head like I don't wanna. Yeah, I'm proud of what I did, I'm gonna come up. Yeah, you left me on red, so don't try to run it. Want no smoke, then come in peace. Flow so foreign overseas. Got them praying, they like please. They want cheddar, not no cheese. Undefined, they don't get it, it's amazing. I was down bad in the basement. I would pray to God for a placement. I was never patient, I was always racing. Got me on the drive, that's a flagrant. Little boy, tell me what you chasing. We gotta do better, gotta be clever. Gotta love more, that's a statement. Yeah, they just wanna see me in the grave. Come out the law in the rave. Oh no, I can't wait. You can read what you sow in the day. I was down, now I'm up to the plate. Got a couple hits, cause you know I can't play. We gon' win it no matter what the shirt. Got the stick, we gon' bring it out the shirt.
It's silver step, yeah, I was just inside the grave. When I resurrected in like 3 whole days. Put up on my car, I had a sneaker. I might take a tenant because we the wave. Walk around the house, got drip on anyway. They gon' eat it up like it's a dinner day. Seen a Lambo, claimed it on the interstate. Claim it's nothing when it's Jesus in the stage. On the front and silver, it's the game. I feel my calendar, I'm losing track of all the days. Call me water boy, and I was giving lemonade. I was sitting on the bench, they had to put me in the game. I be from the data, they said ice in my veins. Got a shit that but I'll never be ashamed. Pushing on the break when I know it's gonna be great. It's time to celebrate you when your family gon' hate.
They just wanna see me in the grave. Come out the law in the rave. Oh no, I can't wait. You can read what you sow in the day. I was down, now I'm up to the plate. Got a couple hits, cause you know I can't play. We gon' win it no matter what the shirt. Got the stick, we gon' bring it out. And I'm back like I never left. They just treating every song like another check. I'm pulling up to every court and I'm calling next. They try to end me, now I'm stopping my foot on their neck. You'll be surprised what they do for attention. God looks into your heart and intentions. I see you judging in all of my mentions. I'm out the grave, I thank God for redemption. Now I'm taking it a step at a time. My future is bright like I turned on the lights. It's crazy how I see them right through the blind. I used to explain how I'm catching these flights. Don't hit my DMs with arrogance. I gotta do it with excellence. I'm reaching the needy, it's evident. And they still in the room with the elephant. Yeah, they just wanna see me in the grave. Come out the law in the rave. Oh no, I can't wait. You can read what you sow in the day. I was down, now I'm up to the plate. Got a couple hits, cause you know I can't play. We gon' win it no matter what the shirt. Got the stick, we gon' bring it out the shirt.
Welcome to Royal Rebounds TV with Calvin and Barry. Just two crazy fans of the Sacramento Kings and they sharing their opinion. So be sure that you subscribe. It's for the fans, by the fans. Whether you chilling on the couch or wildin' in the stand. For laid back conversations about the Kings, subscribe here. Staying down until we come up thinking this gon' be our year. We're here drinking beer, talking about the Kings. Be sure you subscribe so you can hear that bell ring. Yeah.
What's up, Kings fans? Welcome back to another Royal Rebounds Podcast, live with Calvin and Barry. We are discussing the Sacramento Kings 103-105 loss to the Oklahoma City Thunder tonight. Little disclaimer here. Calvin and I were at a bar watching this game, enjoying some beverages, so we're not holding back tonight.
That's right. Anybody who wants to drown their sorrows with us, you are in the right spot.
It was a rough loss for your Sacramento Kings after pretty much controlling the entire game. The Kings were up 18 points at one point in this game, and they just let it slip away towards the end. Very, very unfortunate. If it's your first time to this channel, welcome. This is your favorite Sacramento Kings YouTube channel. Make sure you hit that like button down below if you are a Sacramento Kings fan. And make sure you hit that subscribe button if you'd like to join the Royal family with Calvin and I and enjoy some more awesome Kings content. So, Cal, I will dish it to you for first thoughts and box score.
Yeah, well, let's just start with the box score here. I'm not fully ready to talk about my feelings for this game. Oh, maybe we won't start with the box score. That's okay. I can tell you what's on the box score. The leader for this team tonight was Harrison Barnes in points, 21 points, 8 of 14 from the floor, 5 rebounds. Not a bad game from him overall. 4 of 6 at the line. Only took 2 threes. I thought we were going to see him just let it fly from 3. But he still ends up with 21 points. De'Aaron Fox and Rashawn Holmes, 16 points apiece. Rashawn Holmes with a double-double, 15 rebounds, 4 blocks in this game, and 2 steals. 7 of 9 from the field. Haliburton, first game back, not a great showing. 8 points, 3 of 13 from the field. 8 rebounds and 7 assists, though.
With only 1 turnover.
And then the big addition to the starting lineup, Chimezie Metu starts at the 4 tonight for the Kings. 14 points, 5 rebounds in 24 minutes. Didn't shoot that great, but he did hit some pretty key threes there in the third quarter. And he gets the start over Mo Harkless. 14 points for Buddy Hield off the bench.
Shout out Tanvir. What's up, buddy? Welcome. We are also pissed. What a disappointing loss for your Sacramento Kings, capping off a 4-game losing streak. It's not looking good, guys.
It's bad when the only good thing, or pretty much the only good thing we have to talk about here, is that Mo Harkless was taken out of the starting lineup.
Yeah.
That's pretty much all we got.
And Tyrese is back.
Right now. Yeah.
And Tyrese is back. And, Calvin and I had both talked about the struggles of Rashawn Holmes over the last couple games. 16 points for him tonight, 15 rebounds. Having Tyrese back is huge for Rashawn Holmes.
You could see it. And it's not just him. It's everybody. Harrison Barnes had a better game tonight.
Yep.
The offense works better when Tyrese is out there because it's not De'Aaron Fox pound it into the ground and get to the rim for, even if he gets off a good shot, which a lot of times he does. He's not hitting them with consistency, and they're just not spreading the ball around enough. 20 assists again. That number's too low. This team they need the ball moving more. They need more balanced scoring. I mean, their scoring was pretty balanced tonight, but they are
not
very
enough.
Clearly a better team. Well, they scored enough points to win this game. They were up by 18.
Yeah.
They had this game in their hands the whole way through.
You're not going to win many games in the NBA scoring 103
as
points.
A team. Yeah, they did not shoot great, but they scored enough points to win this game. And it's just so clear to me the offense flows better. It looks better when Tyrese is at the helm.
Yep. It's funny. You and I were talking before the game, and what did we bet on points for De'Aaron Fox?
Yes.
You were like, De'Aaron Fox is going to have 15 points in this game. And I remember checking the box score at halftime, and De'Aaron Fox had 14 points. And I was like, oh, he's gonna have a good game. We were talking about the fit between him and Tyrese, and whether Tyrese having the ball more tonight, involving guys like Rashawn Holmes and Harrison Barnes a little bit more, was going to affect De'Aaron Fox. I was pretty positive at halftime. The Kings were up. De'Aaron Fox already had 14 points. It was looking good. De'Aaron Fox finished with 16 points tonight.
And a back-breaking turnover at the end.
You're not going to win many games when your quote-unquote best player scores 2 points in the second half. It doesn't matter if you're up 20.
Yeah, well, nobody was hitting shots in the second half. They were, this game was so frustrating because even when it was going well, the Kings jumped out to a good start in this game, I guess you could say. It was sloppy to begin for both teams. But the Kings could have been up by 25, 30 points easily in this game. The Thunder missed, I don't know how many layups, close shots at the rim, shots that were contested, yes, but they were very makeable shots. So the Kings were very fortunate, I thought, to have been up double digits for most of this game. And then the fourth quarter rolls around, and they just couldn't do anything. They couldn't execute on offense. They turned the ball over. They gave up offensive rebounds. The Thunder started making layups.
Only 17 points in the fourth quarter for the Kings.
Yeah, just a microcosm of the season, honestly.
Yeah, Patrick, it's funny. Your comment, Calvin and I were talking about it on our way home, is I was like, man, it's been 15 years. Like, what is going on? Like, you would think the law of averages would finally catch up to this team and they'd end up making the playoffs, because there's been a lot of bad teams in the league. It's funny. A few years ago, you guys are going to love this. A few years ago, I made a bet with two other friends. One was a Suns fan. One was a Sixers fan. And we bet on which team was going to have the best record at the end of the season. It was a winner take all, $100 each. And I ended up winning the bet because the Kings had the best record at the end of the year. And this is with Boogie Cousins. Fast forward to now, Suns were just in the finals last year. Sixers are looking pretty good. Sacramento Kings are still in the same spot. What the hell? What is going on, Cal? Why can we not get out of this slump? Sorry, guys, I am angry. Why the fuck are we still losing games?
It's a really long answer to that question. There's so many reasons. Only in the last couple of years have things gone well from them from a front office standpoint, right? They've finally hit on some good draft picks. Yep. They've brought in some or their free agent signings or re-signings, keeping guys like Rashawn Holmes. You know, that was something that they really struggled with in the past. Sure, they had one or two really good players, DeMarcus Cousins, Tyreek Evans for a year.
Yep. Rondo, Rudy
Gay, Isaiah Thomas, all this stuff, but they haven't had the team structure that they've had up until the last couple of years. The front office hasn't made good decisions. It's hard to get big free agent names in a small market like Sacramento that loses consistently. Coaching has been an issue. They've fired coaches that I thought were good coaches. Everybody
were good coaches.
Everyone, I think, likes Dave Yeager. And Malone, what's his first name? Mike Malone, thank you for Denver. You know, those guys were both great with the Kings, and they didn't endure going through a tough season to try and see it out.
Management wasn't patient enough.
They weren't patient enough. So it's an incredibly long answer to why you don't get a 15-year playoff drought without it being a long, complicated answer and a long list of reasons why you're bad.
It can't just be one reason when it's that long of a playoff drought because, hey, one reason is easy to fix.
Yes.
But when there's multiple reasons, it doesn't work out well. Sacktown breakdown. Should we boycott home games until a change is made? I would say no, because these losses are sending a message enough to the front office. If the Kings keep losing these games, and guys, Thunder
that's what it took for the Cubs to win a World Series.
Yeah, that's true. But the Thunder, they
108 years is a lot longer than 15. But
yes, the Thunder are not a playoff team. But hey, they beat the Spurs, who just beat us. They beat the Lakers twice this season. This team has some young talent.
Yeah,
there's no excuses for the Kings in losing this game.
No,
I'm just saying, like these are not. It's not a team that's a guaranteed win, and I think that's what the Kings thought coming into this game. And I look at the next game against the Pistons. For me, I'm looking, this is a win. But the players can't be thinking like that, right? Like, you got to take every game seriously. Everybody in this league is in the NBA. Everybody's been the best player on their team pretty much their whole life. And you gotta take every game seriously, honestly.
Yeah, this team just doesn't seem to have that killer instinct to me. I mean, there have been multiple times this season where they've been up big like this, 18, 15, 20 points. And there's only one game that I can think of where they ran away with it wire to wire and won big. They allowed every other team to come back.
Yep.
And that's a variety of, or that's due to a variety of things. They just don't execute well down the stretch. They turn the ball over in really critical situations.
Style of play. The ball stops moving.
Yep. That first half, it was great. They were sharing the ball. Everything was being spread around. They were getting good looks at the rim. Rashawn Holmes was in rhythm. He was hitting the push shot. He was getting lobs. De'Aaron Fox is then hitting step back threes because they're getting that stuff within the rhythm of the offense.
Yep.
And then you miss a few shots. you start to panic a little bit. You see that lead shrink. The Thunder come back. They make a few good plays in a row. All of a sudden, the intensity of the game ratchets up, and the Kings can't handle it. It just happens far too many times.
Yeah,
and that's a combination of coaching and players not executing, right? The coaching staff has to. You can't affect what the player, or you don't play the game, right? But you have to be able to take control and find a way to snap your guys out of it in that moment.
You got to stop a 9-0 run when you have a shot.
Yeah.
You have to.
And it's not like the Thunder were hitting a bunch of shots. They did not shoot well today.
Yep. And, we talk about how younger teams have problems executing, especially late in games. The Sacramento Kings were one of the youngest teams in the league, but tonight they played the youngest team in the league in the Oklahoma City Thunder.
and got outplayed in the
Thunder executed at the end of the fourth quarter and just destroyed this Kings team. They really did. There's no easy way to put this. The Kings lost this game. Yes, they only allowed 105 points, but they only scored 103, which is like at least 10 less than what they average. They didn't shoot well in this game. They had an 18-point lead, and they just took their foot off the gas. Can't win a lot of games that way. You really can't. I want to know what you guys are drinking tonight. Calvin and I are drinking some beers here from Waikiki Brewing Company. Here we are drinking the Hanaho Hef. It helps with the losses.
Hanaho
really
means
does.
another one.
Makami's drinking water. Makami, you need to have a beer. It will make you feel much better. These losses are killing me. So, Sacktown Breakdown. I'd say this last time we were good. It took us getting a good coach, 2 good rookie drafts, trading for a talented, troubled star. I'm guessing that's Chris Webber, and an experienced vet center all in one off season. We are toast. Yeah, I mean, the positive that I can say is at least our front office is competent. So if we end up having another bad season, we're going to get a good draft pick, and we're going to hit the draft. We're not going to draft a bad player. I'm pretty confident with that. We're 2-2 now in first-round draft picks with this front office. I don't see why they won't make another good pick. All the guy that you guys really like, Chris Duarte, was the Kings' second option in this draft. So if they had not gotten Davion Mitchell, they would have taken him, and he's been balling this year. So I'm pretty happy with our scouting department, and I'm pretty happy with the front office. So that's one positive that I can take from this. But you got to win these games. Honestly, have to win these games.
You do. You do have, yeah. It's just really sad. And I'm reading the comments here. Somebody's talking about the Pacific Division being so hard, and that's 100% correct. But the Kings play a lot of games that aren't in the Pacific Division.
And we haven't played the Lakers yet. We haven't played the Clippers yet.
These are games they need to win. They need to beat Indiana.
We played the Suns twice. We beat them once.
Yeah. But it's all these other games. If the Kings lose to the Lakers, or they lose to the Clippers, or the Suns, or the Warriors, as long as they're not getting blown out by 20 or 30, we're all going to sit here and say, well, that's one of the toughest teams in the league. Mm-hmm. It was good that they were able to keep fighting their way through it. It's these losses, Oklahoma City, San Antonio, Indiana, who's comes into Golden One Center, and whatever it was, 7 or 6 on the road.
Yep.
Those are the games, the losses that are frustrating, and it's those losses that keep you from making the playoffs. It's not the losses to these really good teams.
Yep.
I mean, yes, it hurts to go winless in your division. The chances of you making the playoffs or doing well are not good if you do that. Mm-hmm. But you have so many other games that are considered winnable against these teams. You'll never be a playoff team if you don't win those games.
Yeah, and we're not saying the season's over at this point, but the alarm is on. You need to take advantage of these games, and you need to take advantage of the moment, and the Kings need to turn it around very, very soon. Because you can't keep losing these winnable games, especially against teams like the Thunder that are close to the bottom of their conference. The next game is against the Pistons. If they lose this next game, I have no excuses for the Kings. I really don't.
Yeah. Do you think they need to make a move right now? And what's that move going to be?
You and I talked about Mo Harkless being the weak point in the starting lineup. They brought in Metu tonight. I like that. I like what I saw from him starting out the game. But then you go and you look at his stats tonight. 4 of 12 from the field. That's not good. He took a lot of bad shots. I like the energy. I like the enthusiasm. He was playing great early, and then it just kind of went downhill from there.
True.
So
still, though, we've said with Mo Harkless, if you could just get 10 points out of him a night, right? That would be a huge difference. Metu gave you 14 today.
Yeah, but Mo Harkless doesn't shoot the ball 12 times.
No, that's true. He does not. But you also don't want him to shoot the ball 12 times.
Yeah, I want 10 points on 5 shots.
Yes, ideally,
in a perfect world. But, to get back to your question, whether the Kings make a move, I think they do need to make a move at this point. But I'm reading reports about, the Pistons are interested in Marvin Bagley, which there's no surprise there. Kings offered them last year Marvin Bagley for Sadiq Bey, which the Pistons declined. But the Pistons have been tracking Marvin Bagley for a long time. And the most interesting thing that I read in that report is that a trade is not likely to happen until December 15th. If you don't know what happens on December 15th, that is the date that all players signed this offseason are eligible to be traded. So the trade pool just like quadruples in size at least.
Yes.
So yes, this Kings team needs to make a move, but I don't see them making a move until at least December 15th.
Yeah, you could be right about that. I think they need to make a move, and I think it has to be at head coach. Trading is one thing, and there are so many different potential trades, who's involved, all this stuff. There's so many unknowns to that. But one thing that is becoming clear to me is that Luke Walton is not the right person for this team. Whether they make some additional trade before the deadline or try to move some pieces around, change the lineup, he's had a lot of opportunity with this team. And, I forget who it was in the chat a few shows ago. Somebody said something like, how much longer can Luke Walton last with this 1 step forward, 2 steps back sort of a thing? Tonight is another 2 steps back.
It really is.
And I just don't think you can afford to have too many more of those.
The Sacktown Breakdown says, my biggest question with Monty is, if he's so competent, why did he keep Luke after losing seasons and one of them with 2 9-game losing streaks?
It's a great point.
Didn't he just burn one of his years?
Great point.
Yeah. Yeah, that is.
I was confused about that myself. Point.
I don't think it's okay to have losing streaks, especially 9-game losing streaks. Unforgivable. But in Monty's defense, if you're a newcomer to a job, you're taking over a position, you don't want to change everything at once. It's not fire everybody and start from the ground up. I feel like he wanted this team to have some consistency, and he chose Luke Walton to be that guy. I think the Sixers did the same thing with Bruce Brown, was we're going to keep this guy. We're going to keep drafting players. and then we're going to reevaluate the coaching position. And I think at this point, as much as players like him, De'Aaron Fox likes Luke Walton, like you gotta step forward and you gotta say, hey guys, what's going on here? Why are we losing all these games? Like, is this on the players or is this on the coach? Because we need to make a move. Something needs to change here. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Mm-hmm. And we want some different results in Sacramento. We want this Kings team to be a good team. We want them to make the playoffs. You know, a championship would be great, but, you know, that's not reasonable at this point. That's not what we have our eyes on. Our eyes are just making the playoffs and being a competitive team. So you take that and you say, okay, Luke, well, these are some moves that you've made that I don't agree with. These are some rotations you made that I don't agree with. And we're losing to bad teams. We understand you had a tough start to the schedule, a tough start to the season. But now you're losing to teams that are clearly inferior teams, and you're losing to those teams. So I feel like Monty didn't want to rock the whole boat when he got here. It wasn't a fire everybody and trade everybody moment. It was a get in, evaluate what you have, make good moves, like in the draft, stuff like that. Don't handicap yourself from the future, and move on from them. I honestly think that Monty McNair's entire game plan from day one was accumulate assets, trade for a star player.
Yeah.
And if you fire your coach...
If that's the case, it's time to make a move like that. Though.
Yes. And if you fire your coach right away and you bring in a better coach, you're not going to lose all those games. You're not going to accumulate those draft picks. And you're not going to get that young talent that you can build up and trade for a better player. So honestly, that's the only reason I could think that he kept Luke Walton.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. At this point, I want to see a sense of urgency from this organization, this front office. I want to see some type of move that says we realize this isn't good enough anymore. You know, it's one thing. You made a lot of good points in the last couple of shows about this is a new Sacramento Kings team, no bad contracts. They have all their draft picks. They've drafted well. They're doing all the right things, right? They're building something from the ground up. But at some point, enough is enough. Mm-hmm. And it's time to do something a little bit more extreme, a little bit more with a sense of urgency. Like I said, it's time to put your foot down and say, we recognize that this team's underperforming. Have underperformed, for a couple of years now. And we recognize that we can't just keep beating our heads against the wall over and over again and trying to roll out with the same thing. It's time to do something different.
Yep, I agree. I want to give a quick shout out to Vinny, our producer. Vinny, we got to come up with a hand signal for him. Is this Vinny or what are we doing? Shout out Vinny. Coach Walton's making $11.5 million this year, and he's got 2 years left remaining on the contract. So it'll be interesting what happens there. You guys are blowing up the chat. I love it. I know a lot of pain from us Kings fans. It's tough being a Kings fan, but on the positive end, there's only real Kings fans at this point. You don't miss the playoffs for 15 years and have any bandwagon fans. So look yourself in the mirror, tell yourself, I'm a real Kings fan, and just wait till they get the playoffs. They will make it. It's going to happen one of these days, and we're going to love it. We're going to enjoy it. And then all those guys that were hating on the Kings are going to come out of the woodwork, and they're going to say, oh, I'm from Sacramento. I'm a Kings fan. I like the Kings. I went to a Kings game when I was a kid. Well, where were you the last 15 years? Because we're here, we're talking about the Kings, we're drinking beers, and we're having a good time.
As good of a time as we can, right?
Neil says, but on the other hand, we got picks for Luke's poor coaching. Very true.
Yes, that's why, like with Bruce Brown, when you mentioned that for Philadelphia, that's why you got these picks. Your team is better now. Yep. You don't have a coach good enough to lead them. So let's get a new guy in there.
Michael says, I don't have faith in Fox, y'all. watch him try to go one-on-one against Lou Dort. That's exactly what we were talking about during the game.
I can't argue with that.
Exactly what we were talking about during the game. I love
And
Fox,
Lou Dort
man.
didn't force that turnover.
Yeah.
He's a great defender, but he didn't force that turnover.
I am a huge De'Aaron Fox fan. Don't get me wrong. I love Fox. I love watching him in college. I love him shutting down Lonzo Ball. I wanted the Kings to draft Fox. But, you know, watching these games really makes me wonder. It really does. This is year 5. This is max contract year. You're supposed to be the man. You haven't been playing that well this year. We talked about the last 2 games. He seemed to have got his mojo back and was scoring more. Kings lost both of those games. We talked about the Kings' biggest need this year is a go-to guy. Because late in games, it's a close game. You need a guy that can get you a bucket. It doesn't matter if it's 2, doesn't matter if it's a 3, but there are certain points in the game where you're like, hey, we need a bucket here. Who do you give it to? Hasn't been De'Aaron Fox at this point.
No, it hasn't. I still think Harrison Barnes is more that guy right now than De'Aaron Fox is.
So I got a poll going in the chat. Who should the Kings trade first, Buddy Hield or De'Aaron Fox? We got 53%, De'Aaron Fox 47%, Buddy Hield. This is wild. If we would have done this poll a couple months ago, maybe a couple weeks ago, Buddy Hield would have been like odds-on favorite, like no doubt. And now everyone's calling for De'Aaron Fox to be traded. Let us know who you want to trade De'Aaron Fox for. Is it Ben Simmons? Do you guys feel like Ben Simmons is the guy? Like, I honestly don't know. Like, a change needs to be made. We agree that the Kings need to make a change. Things need to change for this team. But is that change Ben Simmons for De'Aaron Fox? I don't know.
I don't know either. It's just disappointing because you can see this team play the way that they should be playing. Like in the first half of this game, De'Aaron Fox had a pretty good first half. He had 12 or 14 points, like you said. He was hitting threes. But more importantly, they were playing the right style of offense. When Tyrese was out there, the ball was moving. Everybody was touching it.
Yep.
Rashawn Holmes was going. Harrison Barnes was getting going.
Yep.
De'Aaron Fox was being smart about taking shots within the offense when he had them available to him. As soon as Tyrese goes to the bench, boom, clear it out, give De'Aaron the ball, let him go one-on-one. He was still in a rhythm. He was hitting that step-back 3. It looked great. Everything looked really, really good.
Yep.
And then in the second half, it all falls apart.
Tyrese Haliburton, 3 of 13 tonight.
Yeah.
We talked about him being a key to this Kings team success. And how he's been playing well. Luke was raving about his defensive improvements this year. And 1 block, 0 steals for him tonight. I know it's his first game back from injury, so you can't really expect the world from him at this point.
Yeah,
but
not surprising to see that you shoot bad coming off of sitting for 2 nights. But.
Yeah, and he got others involved, which is the important point. But they lost this game to the Thunder. They lost. I can't believe it. Shout out Lane.
18.
Lane wants to trade Fox for Jimmer. I don't know if I agree with that, but thanks for joining us.
Yeah. That's the last thing Kings need to see is Jimmer Fredette back.
Sacktown Breakdown says, Luke will definitely be fired. We might make some trades. Just don't know if they will make the team better. Who's playing good enough for teams to want them?
That's a good point. It's a good point. Ben Simmons isn't playing good enough for people to want him, though.
Yeah, that's a tough one there. But we just have to look at this as we have a capable front office now. this front office has not made a bad move. I mean, you could say extending De'Aaron Fox.
Consider keeping Luke Walton on as head coach is a bad move.
Yeah, correct. But as far as like players go, you could say maybe extending De'Aaron Fox was a bad move. But you give me any GM in the league, they're going to extend De'Aaron Fox in this team. Like
at 23 years old, of course
it's a no-brainer. But you hit on draft picks like Tyrese Haliburton, Davion Mitchell. You lock up Rashawn Holmes on a very, very reasonable deal. Great team deal for Rashawn Holmes. And he's been playing great. So I think this front office has been pretty competent at this point. But they've kind of sat back a little bit and just been like, okay, I want to see where we're at here. I want to evaluate things from afar. And it's pretty clear Luke Walton might not be the guy for this team. And as much as I hate to say it, De'Aaron Fox might not be the guy for this team either. So I think some moves will definitely be made. I don't know if they're going to happen in the next week or 2 weeks. Like I said, December 15th is going to be a huge date because that's when all these guys are unlocked. Anybody that signed a contract this offseason is unlocked and eligible to be traded. So I think there are going to be some big moves happening. And it's interesting because I thought this last year too, and offseason as well. So that could dilute my point here. But they got to make a move. They can't keep losing. People want to keep their jobs. So Kings have to make some moves.
They do. They can't let another trade deadline come and pass without doing anything. They absolutely have to make some moves. Even if it's just trading Marvin Bagley. Like at this point, I feel like if that were to happen, Kings fans would at least be able to say, okay, at least something is going on here. We all realize that Marvin Bagley is not a part of this team. Why is he still on the bench every game? Let's get anything for him. A bag of chips from Safeway, like you put it on the Royal Report. I mean, anything for this guy.
Yeah, if you guys missed that this morning, we released another episode of the Royal Report. We talked about the Kings, the struggles. We talked about the combo of De'Aaron Fox and Tyrese Haliburton, whether that might work. We talked about Coach Walton, a lot of different subjects around your Kings. So if you guys missed that episode, make sure you guys check it out. It's not going to make the pain of tonight any better, but it will at least give you a little bit more insight to this Kings team, especially if you haven't been able to watch every single team. So that brings me to my next topic, Calvin. I've heard the Pistons are interested in Marvin Bagley. I think they've been interested for at least a year now. We talk about the Kings offered Marvin Bagley for Sadiq Bey last year, which the Pistons declined. You and I looked up the stats for Sadiq Bey. He's having a pretty good season. Other than shooting, he's having a pretty good season. Mm-hmm. So that leads me to, if the Kings do make a trade and they end up trading Bagley to potentially the Pistons, is there anybody on that Pistons roster who you feel like the Kings should target?
Well, I love Sadiq Bey. I loved him coming out of the draft. If anybody has been watching our channel for as long as we've been around, you'll remember we did a draft preview special 2 years ago, and Sadiq Bey was one of the players that we targeted for the Kings at number 12, which they eventually took Tyrese Haliburton with. So I like him a lot. Jeremy Grant is a really interesting player to me. I know that the Pistons just drafted Cade Cunningham. They paid Jeremy Grant big. That's kind of like the future of this team, those two guys.
Yep.
But if you could somehow convince them to do a deal involving Buddy Hield, maybe a couple other guys or one other guy and a draft pick or something like that, and you could get Jeremy Grant in return, we've talked about how the Kings have such little production from the power forward spot. Jeremy Grant is a big-time scorer who could fill that role immediately. Not the best defender in the league, but incredibly athletic, good rebounder, has the capability to be a good defender. I think he could be a huge return piece for the Kings.
Let's talk about this trade deal. We had a section this morning on the Royal Report where we broke down a bunch of different trade offers for the Kings. One of them was this Pistons deal. This is Marvin Bagley, Tristan Thompson, Jamias Ramsey, a 2022 and a 2024 first-round pick to Detroit from Sacramento for Jeremy Grant. How do you feel about that deal now?
I like that deal. I like it a lot. It doesn't solve the problem that the Kings have of who runs the offense, who controls the ball most of the game. You still have that De'Aaron Fox and Tyrese Haliburton differential between the two. But Jeremy Grant is no slouch. I mean, the dude is a really, really good player in this league. He is 27 years old, so he's just now entering his prime. I like the deal. It gives up draft picks.
Yep.
But
at least they're protected.
It's protected, and this is the type of deal that you expect to catapult yourself into the playoffs with.
Yep.
So if you give up draft picks, but you're a playoff team, you live with that.
Yep. Yeah, Neil has a good point. He says, nothing against Fox, but it's much like keeping Cousins. He was the best center in the league, but do we win with Fox? No. Fox is not the best fit for the team offense as a point guard. That's a very good point.
You might be right.
And honestly, that is one of the disadvantages when you draft best available and not best fit. The last 2 years, the Kings have taken the approach that we're going to draft best available. And they took a point guard both years. So you can't expect that to help De'Aaron Fox. You really can't.
Yeah.
However, you look at the other side of the coin, the reason they took Marvin Bagley is because they didn't think Luka Doncic fit with De'Aaron Fox. So instead of taking best available, they drafted for need and position, and that didn't work out for Bagley. So either way, you're kind of screwed as a Kings fan, right?
Yeah. It's also different when you look at best available at number 2 overall and best available at 12 overall or 9 overall.
Yep. The Sacktown Breakdown says it's nothing like keeping Cousins. Cousins was a toxic personality in the locker room who whined to refs when not getting calls, and the team played 4-on-5 on defense. Yeah, I see your point of view as well. I don't think that Neil was saying it like that. It's basically just, can you win with this player? Even though Cousins was the best center in the league, they couldn't win with him.
No, he's not a leader. DeMarcus Cousins is not a leader.
Is De'Aaron Fox a leader?
He's more of a leader than DeMarcus Cousins. I'll say that.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
He doesn't bitch and complain. I never see him complain about anything. I mean, yes, he talks to the officials. He says some things here and there, but he doesn't hold his head low no matter what's happening. The guy always plays hard. He just misses a ton of shots. That's it.
Yeah, I think it was a good point. Is you and I, when we were watching the game, we were talking about the key to this Kings team success is that Tyrese needs to have the ball more, because Tyrese is more of a true point guard. And what does that mean for De'Aaron Fox? That means that either he needs to move on to another team and they need to add another player, or De'Aaron Fox needs to transition into a real 2-guard.
Yeah, he needs to be better at catch and shoot. And right now he is not. I mean, he's not even close to that.
And how does that happen?
How do you become better at catch and shoot?
Because you got to think he's been practicing, right?
Yeah. Yeah, he's putting up shots. I mean, look, it's the same thing as why is Davion Mitchell a 62% free throw shooter? It's not because his mechanics are bad. It's not because he doesn't practice free throws. I don't know what it is. Some guys just have the ability to shoot better than others. It just is what it is. De'Aaron Fox has improved his shooting, even though everybody, you only see or you only remember what has happened most recently, and you see his shooting struggles, and it sucks. But he has improved his outside shooting since he first came into the league.
Yep.
But the question is how much, what's his ceiling? How good can he actually be as a shooter?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the answer to that question. His mechanics aren't bad. He's short on a lot of his shots. I don't know what the real reason is for that. Maybe it's because he tweaked his shot mechanics, in the last couple of years. He's worked really hard on it. At the end of the day, some guys don't realize their full potential. I'm not saying De'Aaron Fox won't do that, but I also don't know what his full potential as a pure shooter is. Do I think he's a 40% three-point shooter? Probably not at this point. I'd be happy if he shot 35, 36% from three, but I don't know if he's ever going to do that.
I mean, we've seen guys later on in their careers improve their three-point shooting.
Yeah.
It's been possible. But yeah, I think
we've also seen guys go the other way. I mean, look at Russell Westbrook. Yeah. He's never been a phenomenal shooter, but he used to be a more reliable shooter than he is today. I don't know what happened there or why he suddenly can't shoot as well. And it's been years and years and years. He's still a really effective player, and I think Westbrook and Fox are probably the two most comparable guys for each one of them in the whole league right now.
Yeah.
They play 100 miles an hour down the hill, get to the basket. They can distribute a little bit. They're going to turn the ball over a lot. They're not going to shoot well.
Yep.
But there are a lot of teams that would love to have De'Aaron Fox and Russell Westbrook on their team. So you're right. Like when Tyrese Haliburton was drafted, I said, I don't know if this is going to work, the two of them together, because they both need the ball in their hands for different reasons too. De'Aaron Fox needs the ball in his hand to score and to be in rhythm.
Yep.
Tyrese Haliburton needs the ball in his hands not to score all the time, but he's a much better facilitator. He's a much better orchestrator of the offense. They get better looks when he is controlling the offense and has the ball in his hands. So it's a very difficult catch-22 to have for them right now.
Yeah, I totally agree. Guys, we are going to take a quick break. I need to grab a beer, and we'll be right back. So we'll see you in a couple minutes.
Just bought a new whip, spend a couple thousand just to cruise it. Shawty said she love me, but I swear she'll never prove it. I never tell her, but I put it in the music. Well, that's okay. All I wanna do is make the best of my whole day. Thank the Lord up above, get the cream on the side, make you laugh to know it. That's the stuff that I love, da-da-da-da. We can be friends if you wanna. We could just talk if you wanna. We could hold hands if you wanna. Hey, tell me what you wanna do.
All right, welcome back. Sorry, we had a beverage refill. It was a tough loss tonight, so we got to hydrate so that we are here for you and able to discuss another Kings
Good night,
loss.
Neil. Thanks for watching. Go Kings.
Another Kings loss. That's 4 in a row. Not good, Cal. Not good at all.
Not good at all. It's you said the check engine light was on for the Kings. I think we're broken down on the side of the road right now.
It's time to call AAA.
We need a tow.
Yeah. It's really time to call AAA at this point. This next game against the Pistons is going to be interesting because I don't know if the Kings have had this big of a must-win game. I mean, we talk about the loss to the Spurs last year where that was a must-win for them to make the playoffs. But this is a must-win early on in the season.
Yeah, this is a save your
They
season type game.
to win this game. They have to.
Yeah, they do. There's nothing else I can say. They have to win this game.
And the Pistons, you know, as bad as they've been this season, they're a professional team in the NBA. They have a lot of great basketball players on their team.
They've been competitive.
This is not a easy win. This is not a check it off as a win on the calendar, because I feel like that's what the Kings did on this Thunder game tonight. Right?
Yeah.
Because they're like, oh, we're two games.
Lane says we're wrecked and the car is totaled.
Yeah, I don't know about that. We're not that far, Lane. We're not that far. The check engine light came on. You know, we're hearing some funny noises coming from the engine. We're going to call AAA, see what happens there. But yeah, it's not good. It's not good at all.
Yeah, I think we need a new engine. And that would be the coach for me.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about coaching then. So let's say theoretically Luke Walton is relieved of his coaching duties after the loss to the Pistons.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to upset anybody, but at this point it's not looking good. Alvin Gentry is the next man in line. He's the vice president. He's ready to step in. We got no Nancy Pelosi on this team unless you would consider that a Doug Christie or something like that. So Alvin Gentry's ready to take over.
Uh-huh.
How do you feel about that fit on this team?
I like it. I mean, I don't know if Alvin Gentry is necessarily my long-term answer at head coach, but the Kings are in a really fortunate position with the fact that they have all these guys on the bench right now. And Alvin Gentry has a lot of head coaching experience in this league. So he would be an ideal interim head coach, in my opinion. And who knows, maybe it could be a Nate McMillan situation where he takes over. The Kings all of a sudden turn it around. They start playing really well. They make the playoffs. Mm-hmm. And Alvin Gentry does become the next long-term head coach. But I think it makes a lot of sense for them to let him be the interim head coach and just keep that label on him, make nothing official yet, wait to see how things go, and use all the time that they have for the rest of the season to do a really good productive search for the next head coach. And I think you wait until later on in the year, guys get fired or whatever happens, teams don't make the playoffs, other guys could become available. You don't rush this because you have somebody like Alvin Gentry who can be an adequate interim head coach in the meantime.
Yeah, I think Alvin Gentry is well respected around the league. You know, he's been everywhere. You know, he's been with the Spurs. He's been with the Clippers. He's been with the Heat. He's been with the Pistons.
Pelicans.
Back with the Clippers again. He's been with the Suns. He's been with the Warriors. He's been with the Pelicans. He's been with the Kings. That's a lot of teams.
It is a lot.
But Alvin Gentry is not going to make De'Aaron Fox hit these shots.
No, he's not. But maybe Alvin Gentry could get them to come out and play better in the first and third quarter, the first 5 minutes. Maybe Alvin Gentry could get them to run a better offense that produces more points on a consistent basis. Maybe he changes things altogether and they don't shoot as many threes as they normally do. I mean, the Kings take a lot of threes. They have guys that can hit them, but they're a streaky team. Even Tyrese this year, who shot over 40% last year, he has not shot that well from three this year, but they continue to put him up. And again, I don't right now today, I don't think that Alvin Gentry should be the Kings' next hire, as in their long-term head coach. Mm-hmm. I think he is a luxury to have in a situation like this where you're not performing well. You need to make a change. So get Luke Walton out of here and use this guy who has a ton of coaching experience to basically just hold you above water until you find out what the real long-term answer is going to be.
Yep. I think the question that a lot of Kings fans are contemplating, and it makes sense, especially after, his success this summer, is there a path for Bobby Jackson to be the head coach of the Sacramento Kings?
Is there a path? Sure, there's a path. It's probably a long-term path right now. I mean, there are a lot of guys, excuse me, a lot of guys in this league or who have put a lot of time in. Mm-hmm. Bobby Jackson's one of them, but there are a lot of guys who have put a lot more time in than him and who are in a better position than him right now. I don't, it's hard for me to say. I don't see the way Bobby Jackson runs his practices. I don't know how much of a risk it would be to try to take, Gary Payton has been an example of a coach who's had a lot of success, obviously has a great reputation. Nobody's given him an opportunity yet. Even someone like Becky Hammon still hasn't gotten an opportunity as head coach yet in the league. She's somebody I would take a close look at.
What is she going to change on this Kings team?
What can she change on this Kings team? Yeah. I don't know, exactly what she's going to do. I would have to sit down and talk to her. But I just think that the Kings need to make a change. I don't know what her coaching philosophy would be. I don't know what Alvin Gentry's coaching philosophy would be or how different it would be from Luke Walton's. But this team just is not producing in the way that they should be producing right now.
Ed says, y'all thirsty as fuck. We need to trust the process. All the negative energy ain't good. LOL.
The negative energy is not good. You're right. But the Kings haven't made the playoffs in 15 years.
And they're on a 4-game losing streak.
A roster today that's talented enough to make the playoffs.
Yep.
And they continue to take step back after step back after step back.
Yep.
They continuously play games where both halves are completely schizophrenic. The one half they look great, the next half they don't. They're a team that shoots a lot of threes, so obviously you're going to have to endure parts where you're not hitting from the outside. Mm-hmm. When you're up 18 in a game on the road that you've controlled the whole way, just because all of a sudden your shots start to not fall, you have to find a way to pull that game out on the road. And I don't know if it's more the players to blame than it is the coaching staff. But Luke Walton, in his whole time there, this is exactly what we've seen from them.
Yep.
And he's been given a more talented roster. He's been given good draft picks. You can argue whether or not the draft picks were the right picks at that particular time because of how they fit into the rest of the team and should they make a trade. But I don't know if this team is better if they trade De'Aaron Fox for Ben Simmons, but Luke Walton is still the coach.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if that's the case.
I've been a manager at a few different jobs. And one thing that I've learned being a manager is that when shit hits the fan, it's your fault.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if that specific job or that specific, responsibility was yours. Maybe it was somebody that was under you. But if they didn't do it or they didn't meet expectations, it's on you because you're the one that's responsible. So I think a lot of this really does fall on Luke Walton. And I've said in the past, I support Luke Walton as long as the players want to play for him. I want him to be on this team. But I'm seeing in the chat here, a lot of people are talking about bringing Yeager back. I was a big fan of Dave Yeager. I thought he did well with this team. The only real separation that Dave had with this team, which led to him getting fired, was he didn't want the team to draft Marvin Bagley. He wanted Vlade to take Doncic. And as soon as they took Bagley, it seemed like the writing was already on the wall for Yeager. There was even a practice where he calls out Vlade and he says, hey, I got a trade set up for Doncic. You want to trade for him? We could trade for Doncic. I think the Kings have spoken, and they've said that Marvin Bagley is not part of this team. He's not a future on this team. Dave Yeager is with Philadelphia now. He's assistant coach there. Mm-hmm. Head coach for him might be an upgrade. I think it's very rare to bring a guy in halfway through the season that hasn't been with the team. But potentially you make an Alvin Gentry a head coach or interim for the rest of the season. You bring Dave Yeager back at the end of the season. Would you be open to a move like that, or would you be open to somebody new like Mike D'Antoni?
Yeah, I've seen Mike D'Antoni's name here in the chat. I do like Mike D'Antoni. I agree with Sacktown Breakdown here. I like D'Antoni. I think that he could fix a lot of the problems that this team has on offense. I think he would make them play faster, which would be a good thing. I think he would fix a lot of the when the ball just gets stagnant and doesn't move and there's so much one-on-one. Yes, I realize Mike D'Antoni did that for years with Houston, but that's because he had the best isolation player in the game on his team.
Yep.
He can easily adjust to a different system that has a variety of players that can score. And maybe they still pick up the slack on defense. D'Antoni's an interesting guy. You and I have been big Mark Jackson fans for a long time.
Yep, I was just about to mention that.
I still think that Mark Jackson would be a good person to give a shot with this team. He's the type of guy. He just has that leadership quality to him.
Yep.
He's the guy that would come in and totally, we talked a lot in the offseason about this team needs to change the culture and get rid of all the years of pain and the years of losing, the mystique that comes behind all of that clouds your head as a player.
He's a player's coach.
He's a player's coach for sure, and he's a great motivator. So I think he would be a good a good guy to get. That is, if he's willing to still come out of the booth.
Sass says no motivational speaker coaches.
Well, I don't know. I mean, maybe that's what this team needs as a motivational speaker coach.
They need someone that's going to empower these players to play well. That's really what needs to happen, honestly. Kick ass. I see you say stupid Vlade fired 2 winning coaches in Yeager and Malone. Yeah, he did. And in live time, I was very upset that happened. I didn't want Mike Malone to be fired. As soon as he got fired, the Nuggets jumped on that opportunity. They hired him. Same with the Jaeger situation. But in Vlade's defense, and I don't do this very often, he hired the 6th most winningest coach of all time in George Karl. He thought that George Karl would have been a path to the playoffs for this team. And I think Vlade was in a very, very tough position because when you lose for so long, the odds just keep stacking on top of you and what's expected of you. And I don't know if he was given the opportunity of like, hey, if we want to make this a good team, we need to sit down. We need to rebuild this team from scratch.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to be slow. We need to be patient. We need to build through the draft. I don't know if he was given that option. So when you're not given that option, it's basically your job or mine. So he's not thinking Mike Malone or Dave Yeager is the guy that's going to help us build and get better and move on to the playoffs. He's thinking this year I need to make the playoffs or I'm getting fired. And that's probably why he made the move for George Karl.
Probably. I mean, that's a guy, at the time you feel like it's a big splash hire. George Karl, like you said, 6th most winningest coach in history, comes with a lot of reputation behind him, has coached a lot of really good players in this team, and it just didn't work out. Sass, I'm sorry, man. I disagree with you. I don't think Luke Walton is a motivational coach. I don't see that from him. I don't see sure, he gets upset on the sidelines. He can get in your face. He can yell, all this stuff. I don't know. When I listen to him talk postgame in his press conferences, yes, he has a really monotone voice and all that stuff. That doesn't make you sound like a motivational guy in general. But I just don't see that from him at all. Even if guys like playing for him, I don't consider him the guy that can take a timeout, sit everybody down, slap the clipboard. Even when he does that stuff, it just doesn't seem genuine.
Fake. Yeah,
to
it
me.
seems fake. Yeah. He's seen a lot of other guys do that, and he's trying to imitate instead of organically do it because that's how he feels. And you know how I feel right now is I'm pissed because we only have 15 likes right now. If you're all Kings fans, hit that like button down below. Come on, guys. We're all Kings fans. We want to talk about the Kings. We want the Kings to do well. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. Because if we're going to make the playoffs, we all need to do it together, honestly. And I don't know if that is trading De'Aaron Fox. I don't know if that's trading Buddy Hield. Obviously, Marvin Bagley is not part of this team now, so he's on his way out. Hopefully, the Kings can get something from him so they don't end up in another situation of giving up a player. And I think that Marvin Bagley will probably do well on another team if he can stay healthy. I think he can help this team this year if he was given the opportunity, but obviously there's something going on. I don't know if it's between him and the front office or him and the coaching staff, but honestly, he's not been involved in this team. And it's very sad. It's very sad as a Kings fan. Stop saying playoffs. Play in. Ed, we all want to make the playoffs. Play in makes it to the playoffs.
The problem with saying that, though, is even if you're the 7 or 8 seed, that's the plan, right? But in any other year, you would still be part of the playoffs. So, they are kind of one and the same. I mean, it's Ed. Do you really think that the Kings roster is not talented enough to be the 8th or 7th seed in the Western Conference playoffs? Because I do.
Yeah. I mean, you have a guy in Harrison Barnes who, up until a week ago, was
agree to disagree.
Was playing great. You have Buddy Hield that was 6-man candidate. Davion Mitchell was a potential Rookie of the Year candidate. Tyrese Haliburton's playing great. De'Aaron Fox was not playing his greatest, but the Kings were above 500 when their best player wasn't playing that great.
Mm-hmm.
Those are all positive signs for your Kings. And, you know, maybe Calvin and I are getting a little ahead of ourselves here. Maybe we're just frustrated because it's a 4-game losing streak and the Kings are below 500 now. And, you know, maybe some of these changes that we're suggesting are not going to help the team. But we're fans. We watch the games. We want the Kings to do well. We've been watching them for a long time, and we're not seeing any changes in this Kings team, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
Sackdown Breakdown. Funny that Vlade interviewed Nate McMillan before interviewing Elston Turner, who told Vlade that Jaeger was leaving Grizzlies and he should interview Jaeger. Funny how we always miss. I mean, either way, he fired Jaeger. He would have fired Nate McMillan too. If you're not patient and you don't let your coach, you know, do well, and as a GM, if you're not doing well at your job and you're not drafting good players to help out your coach, it's all connected. It really is all connected. It all has to be consistent throughout. It really does. Name 8 teams for the playoffs. Are you talking Western Conference, Eastern Conference?
I think we're definitely talking Western.
We can look at the standings here.
No, I'm looking at them right now. And I mean, you make a good point. Like, the Lakers are in the 7th spot right now. The Grizzlies are in the 8th. Trailblazers are in the 9th. Thunder are in the 10th. I would like to think that you and I both believe the Kings are better than the Thunder. They lost to them tonight. The Thunder are 5 and 6. I would hope that we both agree that the Kings should finish better than the Thunder this season. Those other teams, Grizzlies, Lakers, Trailblazers, I can't say for certain that the Kings are better than any of those teams. Portland's really struggled early on this year. Damian Lillard's having one of the worst years of his career. I don't think that's going to continue for much longer.
And they're only 6 and 7.
Yeah. The Lakers, the Clippers started off terrible. They're missing a lot of their best players. Then Paul George is continuing to have a great year. So, yeah, I mean, if you're asking me, are the Kings better than those teams? As of right now, of course I'm going to say no. But do I think that the Kings have the ability to have a record that's going to finish ahead of the Grizzlies for the 8th spot? Yeah, they do. I don't think those two teams are that far apart. Ja Morant is all world to me. I love Ja Morant. Jaren Jackson Jr. is still continuing to try to like find his way back in the lineup after injury. He really hasn't looked that great yet.
Better than Bagley.
And then outside of that, I don't know what happened to Brandon Clark. All of a sudden they're saying they're going to trade him. Dylan Brooks has been hurt. So health is, going to be an issue for all teams always going down the stretch. But there's no secret that the West is tough. But even if you make the play-in, like, you're 1 or 2 games out of being in the playoffs.
Yep.
I mean, I don't think there's anybody who watches basketball, let alone Kings basketball, and doesn't think that the Kings have the potential to be a play-in team, which therefore means all they would have to do potentially is win 1 game to be a part of the main 8. Like, the competition is stiff. Yes, absolutely. It's stiff in the Eastern Conference too. But the Kings are underperforming right now. For a 4-game losing streak and 5 and 8 with the teams that they've lost to, that's underperforming. It just is.
Yeah, having a 4-game losing streak when you've only won 5 games is not a recipe for success.
Yeah, you're right. That's play-in is more likely, but that doesn't mean that. All I'm saying is this team has the potential to be a playoff team. Even if you make the play-in tournament, you have the potential to be a playoff team.
Sass says Hallie was 3 of 13 and part of the reason why Thunder came back. Yeah, I mean, first game back from injury.
A lot of threes there in the second half.
You don't expect him to shoot well.
They were open shots, though. I mean, that's a good point. He took a bunch of wide open threes. tonight, especially in the second half, and he missed.
He got everybody else involved, which is something that De'Aaron Fox has not been doing.
Assists.
Yeah.
And Rashawn, just the difference between Rashawn Holmes, or the difference in Rashawn Holmes to when Tyrese doesn't play to when he does play, is so huge.
Yeah, I want to know who you all want to trade De'Aaron Fox for. I don't know if everybody's on the De'Aaron Fox for Ben Simmons boat, or whether you think there's somebody else. And really, if you want Tyrese Haliburton handling the ball, maybe Ben Simmons isn't the correct option, because Ben Simmons seems to need the ball in his hands also. So,
well, yeah, he's definitely not a catch and shoot guy, so he's not going to be standing in the corner waiting for the pass from Tyrese Haliburton.
All right, let's look here. Did y'all watch the Royal Report this morning? Let us know down below in the chat if you did. It was a fun episode. We talked about Tyrese Haliburton, the De'Aaron Fox tandem. We talked about coaching. We went over some potential trades that Calvin and I either yay or nay on. It was an interesting episode. Not as fun as last week, considering the record difference, but slow week of Kings basketball, I guess you could say. One thing that Calvin and I did agree on that we thought were really important, if this Kings team is going to be successful, we need efficiency from De'Aaron Fox. We all know that De'Aaron Fox can get 25 points a game if he's shooting the ball 24, 25 times. But if Tyrese Haliburton is on the court and he's getting others involved, in Harrison Barnes, Rashawn Holmes, that means less shots for De'Aaron Fox. And De'Aaron needs to be efficient for this Kings team to win, right?
100%. 100%. Which is exactly why I said he's going to score 15 points today. Because I knew he wasn't going to... how many shots did he attempt? 14. I knew he wasn't going to take 24 shots with Haliburton being in there. It's just not...
The Sacktown Breakdown says, Ben can't play off the ball. He refuses to shoot. He just wants to score 13 points per game. Defer to people in the clutch. Pass up on dunks and play awesome wing defense.
It's a fair assessment. I mean, that's exactly what we saw from him the last time he played in the playoffs.
You could say the same thing about Draymond Green.
You can say the same thing about Draymond Green.
You can. But Draymond Green's got two of the greatest shooters of all time on his team.
Yes. Very different situation.
You know, the Kings don't. They have Buddy Hield, but Buddy Hield is as good of a three-point shooter as he is. He's not as good as Klay Thompson. He's not as good as Steph Curry, and he doesn't bring the playmaking that Steph Curry brings. He doesn't bring the defensive that Klay Thompson brings to the game. It's just a whole nother scenario, honestly. And you live by the three, you die by the three. Mm-hmm. That's basically what this Kings team is at this point. I really loved what I saw tonight in Metu starting for the Kings. I want to give a shout out to Coach Walton for watching this podcast, because Calvin and I were both like, Metu needs a start. Metu started tonight. The Kings started off well in this game. Much better than the last two games. They weren't down. I don't think the Kings were down in this game until the fourth quarter. And then they fell apart.
Yeah. Yeah. He will shoot, but he passes up a lot of open threes as well. And for good reason. It's like Barry just said. He's got two of the greatest shooters of all time on his team. He says that all the time. Why would I shoot the ball when Steph Curry's on my team?
Yeah, and I'm not saying the Kings fans are trying to trade De'Aaron Fox for Draymond Green. They're trying to trade De'Aaron Fox for Ben Simmons. And Ben Simmons is similar to Draymond Green. He honestly is. Like, he's a better playmaker than Draymond Green. Draymond Green is a really good playmaker. So I'm not taking anything away from him. But
makes more money than Draymond Green.
They're two guys They play great defense. They're big guys, and they don't shoot that well. Honestly, it's just how it is. Yeah, I'm not suggesting that deal. I was comparing Ben Simmons to Draymond Green and what they bring to a team. They're a similar guy. They really are. I like Ben Simmons a lot. He does have flaws in his game. So does Draymond Green. Draymond Green is a great defender. He's a great playmaker. He did make shots. I think he had like 2 years where he shot like decent from 3-point range. But for the most part, he's not a great shooter. He really is not.
No,
Ben Simmons is a worse shooter than him. I agree with that. But they're very similar on the defensive end of the floor. They're very similar on the playmaking end of the floor. And if Ben Simmons was brought to this Kings team, he's not the point guard. He's not going to be the point guard on this Kings team. It's unless you trade De'Aaron Fox, Tyrese Haliburton, and Davion Mitchell for Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons is not going to be the point guard on this team. He's going to be the small forward or he's going to be the power forward. He's going to dominate on the defensive end of the floor. And maybe they're going to run some offense through him, maybe like high pick and roll plays, stuff like that. But he's going to have a Draymond Green role on this Kings offense if he's with the team. That's how I feel. What about you?
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I agree with what Sacktown Breakdown just said when talking about Ben Simmons. I just don't like everything that's gone on with him personally over the past, whatever it is, 4 or 5 months, or really since the playoffs ended. Just how he's handled himself, the way he's gone about everything. I get it. You don't want to play in Philadelphia anymore. You can request a trade, all this stuff. But he just is not he's a good player, but he's not a good enough player to do the things that he's done in the past 4 months and expect people to still want to make a deal for him. Like, his flaws are too big for you to be this careless, about your basketball career and just expect that something is going to fall into your lap and you're going to get what you want and you get out of Philadelphia. And then when he does, that's when the real questions start, right?
Yep.
Have you gotten better? Can you hit free throws? Are you going to continue to defer in the clutch? Can you hit a three? All these questions are still there with him. It's not, He hasn't cleared any of that.
Yeah, I agree with RP here. He said Luke needs to be held responsible. Team is too stagnant, and their defense has failed them again.
100%. I think the change needs to be made at coach.
Yeah, I really agree. We watch this team. It seems like on offense, one guy is moving. Maybe 2 guys are moving. That's it. Everybody else is standing around. I don't know what the hell is going on. Like, I want to say this is Luke's fault, but I honestly don't even know if that is Luke Walton's fault. Like, these guys are not moving. They're just I don't know if they're tired. I don't know what the play is being called, but there's just not enough movement on the offensive end of the floor. And you and I talked, I think it was at halftime, we talked about De'Aaron Fox playing off the ball. This guy, if he was cutting to the basket, he'd have at least 10 points a game. Just cutting the basket when Tyrese Haliburton has the ball. Because De'Aaron Fox is the quickest guy in the league. And I don't see enough movement from this Kings team. I don't.
No, and it's frustrating because you do see it in certain spots or for a half of a quarter or even a full quarter. You see the ball move. You see the movement without the ball. But the thing is, when that happens, Tyrese Haliburton is running the offense, not De'Aaron Fox.
Yep. RP says we should have drafted Jalen Johnson.
He's not a catch-and-shoot player. Sorry, I'm reading Sacktown Breakdown's comment about De'Aaron Fox. He can't shoot. He can barely shoot off the dribble. I mean, he's definitely not a catch-and-shoot player.
Yep. I want to remind everybody that's joining us just now to make sure you guys hit that like button down below if you're a Kings fan. Make sure you hit that subscribe button if you'd like to join the Royal family with Calvin and I. We put out fresh Kings content almost every day. We do a live almost after every single Kings game. We have the Royal Report every single Friday debuting. We talk about a week's worth of Kings action. So if you don't have time to watch all the games, just watch the Royal Report and you will be caught up. We've also got a couple requests lately. In the offseason, we did a NBA 2K team rebuild. We've been getting some more requests to do that. So in the next week or so, we're going to do an NBA 2K Kings rebuild. We're going to do it live. We're going to be paying attention to the chat. We're going to be posting some polls so you guys can help us out on making deals. And then we're going to simulate through a couple seasons and see how this Kings team does. Calvin, I got to ask you this. I know we haven't rehearsed this ahead of time, but what is going to be your first move with this 2K rebuild? Are you trading players? Are you changing coaches?
Well, I don't know. First of all, I just want to address a comment here from Ryan Lewis. Barry and I are definitely not deleting any comments in this chat, so I don't know what happened there, but we would not do that. Even if they were extremely negative towards us, we probably wouldn't delete them. So I don't know what happened. I apologize, but it wasn't us. That's for sure.
Write it again.
To your point, what am I going to do in this rebuild? I wish I could fire Luke Walton and hire a new head coach. That would be my first move. But no, in all honesty, I would probably look, everybody is big on the trade De'Aaron Fox hype train right now. I think I would probably maybe look to see what I could get for both guys, but I would be more inclined to look at and see what I could get for Buddy Hield first before I traded Fox.
Okay.
It's 2K, so 2K could go like all sorts of crazy, and you could do some really bizarre things that most people would not expect to be realistic in the real world.
Yep.
But if I was approaching it from a real world perspective, I would first look at what can I get for Buddy Hield before I would get what I would get for De'Aaron Fox.
I see an earlier comment from Ryan here in the chat. He says, Pat Riley got promoted from announcer to coach. That's what I'm trying to do. GM, actually. I don't want to be a coach. The following season, he was made head coach early in the season. I can see the same blueprint for us, but way sooner. He's a player's coach. Make it happen. Who are you talking about here, Ryan? Announcer to coach. You're talking about
Mark Jones.
No, I think he's talking about Doug Christie.
Doug Christie.
I'd like to see Doug Christie.
It's very early to give him a shot, but sure, why not?
RP says, my biggest complaint with Walton is that he doesn't adapt his system to the talents of his players. This is not a good three-point shooting team, yet that is all we seem to do. It's frustrating.
Good point.
Very valid comment.
Good point.
Very valid comment.
And it's frustrating to think about, too, because they have good three-point shooters on this team. I mean, Tyrese Haliburton shot 41% last year.
Their
Harrison
best
Barnes
player
shot 39%
is not a good
last year.
three-point shooter.
Right. And so then tell him not to take threes, but everybody else should be taking threes. I mean, Buddy Hield, we talk all the time about Buddy Hield. He's going to go 8 for 14 one night and come back and go 2 for 9 the next night.
Yep.
But I don't think anybody wants Buddy Hield to not shoot from 3. If anything, that's all we want to do. Every time he puts the ball on the floor, I start to get nervous because I'm like, oh, is he going to turn it over again? What's he going to do? Is this going to be some wild, crazy pass?
Yep.
I do think this year, it's always been kind of part of his game, but I think this year he's actually been better about driving to the basket and getting shots up at the rim with both hands. Like he seems a lot more comfortable in terms of trying to make finishes.
Yep.
But let's be honest, he's out there for one thing, and that's to shoot threes. So they either need to make some moves and go for a different team philosophy altogether, or try to just own the paint. They should be getting these paint touches. De'Aaron Fox, Tyrese Haliburton, Rashawn Holmes, they should try to destroy teams in the paint every night.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't know if this team shooting this many threes is Coach Walton's doing. You look at the
is on record saying he wants
that's
Harrison
true.
Barnes to shoot 8 threes.
It's true.
Buddy shot 17 and he loved it. So.
But you look at the front office on this team, specifically Monty McNair, and I've been a big fan of Monty, but Monty McNair was the assistant GM, and this was a very, very long time. I think he was with the Rockets for 12 years. And we saw the Rockets transition into this small ball. They set records every single year in shooting threes. So maybe this could be a Monty McNair trickle down to Luke Walton. I'm not sure. But one thing I do have to say is I don't know if this podcast is like therapy for me or it might be the beers, but I'm feeling much better than I was after the loss. As soon as the loss was over, I was feeling horrible. And I know the Kings record hasn't improved in the last hour, but I'm feeling much better as a fan. So thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you guys for commenting.
It's good to air out your grievances and your
commenting in the chat. I'm feeling a little bit better. And I think the only way for this Kings team to feel better is to move on to the next game. So that's what I want to talk about next.
Yep, we're going to the airport.
The Kings are on their way to the airport. They are leaving Oklahoma City, boring place, and they are going to Detroit, another boring place, to play the Pistons. Monday, November 15th, Kings-Pistons. Kyle, how are you feeling about this game?
Well, we've already said, right? They got to win this game. They need to win this game in a bad way. I don't really have much else to say. I mean, the Pistons have some good players. Jeremy Grant's a great player.
Yep.
Cade Cunningham is going to be a great player. I like Sadiq Bey a lot. But the Kings got to come in here and win this game, and they have to do it right from the beginning. If they come out and get another slow start after all these losses have been piling up on top of them, they're not shooting well from the outside. It's gonna be rough. It's gonna be a rough time for them mentally.
Pistons are 2-9 on the season. They are
one of their wins is against Houston, by the way, which only has one win, I think, this year.
Yeah, they're not the Rockets. They're not the Pistons, who both have one win. However, still a professional basketball team.
Oh, yeah.
The Kings need to take this game seriously. If they lose this game, you guys are going to want to watch our podcast after the game because Calvin and I will go fucking crazy if they lose that game against the Pistons. But, Cal, I just want to hear from you what your keys to the game would be against the Pistons.
Well, the Pistons aren't necessarily one of the league leaders in any really major category. They're about middle of the pack in scoring. They're middle of the pack in opponent scoring. They're not a tremendous rebounding team. They're a below average team all around. So the Kings just have to play smart. They need to limit the turnovers. They need to move the ball. Obviously, it's going to help if they can hit a bunch of threes. But part of that is playing smart offense, not having the ball stick in any one particular person's hand. They need to move it around, use that pick and roll game with Rashawn Holmes and Tyrese Haliburton, and just get smart shots. And I think they should play fast too. I really think they should get up and down and run more often.
Yeah, it's good to see this Kings team getting healthy again. That's one thing that Calvin and I talked about early in the season was this Kings team has remained healthy, and then they went through a little bit of an injury bug, and that might be something to do with this losing streak. And now Tyrese Haliburton is back. I know he didn't play really well, I guess, shooting tonight, but I think the Kings are on the right path here. I feel like they have to win this game against the Pistons. Hopefully it'll put them back on the right track. Then they play the Timberwolves, and they're back at home against the Raptors, the Jazz, the Sixers, Trailblazers. A lot of tough games coming up. So the Kings really do need to win this game. I might even say this game will make or break their season if it hasn't been broken already.
It's a very important game.
Yep.
Very, very important game.
Yep. All right. Well, I want to thank you all for joining us for another Royal Rebounds podcast. We had a great time talking about Kings basketball. Unfortunately, the Kings lose tonight to the Oklahoma City Thunder, but the beauty of basketball is we have another chance on Monday night against the Detroit Pistons. Calvin and I will catch you all after the game. In the meantime, go Kings.
Go Kings.